All right, folks, I think we're going to get started. Candace, if you can just spotlight my video. So welcome, my name is Erin Becker, and I'm the Norma Jean Calderwood Director of the Cambridge Art Association. This event, Marking Lives COVID-19, is presented in partnership with the Concord Center for Visual Arts. I want to thank you for joining us for this virtual talk with Liz Awalt and guests tonight. As we approach the 1-year mark of living in the time of COVID, and as the national death toll has surpassed 525,000 people, I am grateful that all of you have joined us tonight to learn more about the Marking Lives Project and to discuss this public memorial to the lives that have been lost. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to remain muted during the speaker portions of this event. We do invite you to use the chat, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen, to let us know where you're joining from and if you've participated in the Marking Lives COVID-19 project. You can also direct message other attendees by clicking on the blue Everyone button in the chat and scrolling to select a particular person. We will have a Q&A portion towards the end of the event, and we invite you to type your questions into the chat throughout the presentation and panel discussion. During the Q&A, Marisa Cote from Concord Art will moderate these questions and will unmute select participants to ask their question live. Oh, bless you. We would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we are gathered on, both literally and virtually. And this is a digital land acknowledgement inspired by the work of producer and artist Adrian Wong. We gather today in an effort to create art in a new digital format using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. This technology, which has now become central to our daily lives, leaves a significant footprint and contributes to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous people. Although we were here together virtually, separated by distance in different geographical locations, collectively we all sit on Indigenous land that was once occupied and inhabited by thousands of Native tribes, land stolen from these peoples by European settlers. The genocide and forced removal of Indigenous people from these lands is a history that must be acknowledged, and the current struggles of Indigenous people must be brought to the forefront so that their plight is never forgotten. And with that, thank you again for joining us tonight. I am pleased to introduce my colleague and co-host, Kate James, Director of Concord Center for Visual Arts.
Hi. Am I spotlighted? I don't know.
I can see you, Kate. I think we're going to stop the screen share for a moment just so we can see the speakers.
Okay. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. And thank you, Erin, for that lovely introduction. I am pleased and privileged to be here tonight to introduce Liz Awalt. Liz, I'm sure most of you know Liz because she's been an accomplished painter and teacher in the area for I don't know how many years, but I know she started teaching at at BC. I think in the 80s. I don't know. Liz can probably. Anyway, she's an accomplished painter and teacher. She lives and works in Concord, Mass, and Swans Island, Maine. Liz has a BA from Boston College and an MFA from the University of Pennsylvania, where she in fact studied with Neil Welliver. She went back to BC to teach art where she was tenured. Her paintings are rooted in the natural world, particularly landscapes of raw beauty or those affected by environmental change. She's been awarded fellowships and grants from the Mass Cultural Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. Residencies include the Fine Arts Work Center, McDowell, Yaddo, and Malay Colony. Liz's work has been shown at the MFA de Cordova, the Rose, and McMullen museums. Solo shows include the Danforth, Matter and Light Fine Art, Clark Gallery, Soprafina Gallery, Thomas Siegel Gallery, G.W. Einstein Gallery, and Caldbeck Gallery. And in April 2019, Liz was chosen to exhibit in the 13th Havana Biennale in Matanzas, Cuba. I'm excited to be able to work with Liz. Recently, she joined the art committee at Concord Art, and we're really lucky to have her. She's been a teacher at Concord Art as well, and a lovely neighbor in Concord. So it is my pleasure to introduce Liz Awalt, the founder of this project. Thank you, Liz.
She's muted. She has to, Liz has to unmute.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Erin. Kate, are we going to have a little question answer period here? Or do you want to ask me some questions, or should I just get going here?
I think why don't you start, and then we'll have more questions for you later. How's that?
Okay, that's fine. So welcome everybody. I'm really excited and honored to have these two great organizations host this evening tonight. And I am also very grateful to have 4 of the artists that will also be with us tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project, how I started it, and where it's going now. And then I will be showing you slides. We'll be showing slides of many of the artists' works. But I must apologize to all of them because, of course, I can't show all the work. I chose the work to show tonight for its variety, because there has been an amazing variety of work that has happened since the beginning of the project. So I started this project in early December when things were really terrible, both in our country politically, but also particularly with COVID, and waking up every day to these horrible numbers at the beginning front page of the newspaper, and just feeling that I needed to do something. I began, of course, working as an artist does, making art, and I set myself some boundaries of just making marks. Each mark for me represented a life that was lost to this COVID virus. And I created the other parameter was to make 1,000 marks per page. I did that and actually really enjoyed the process. It was interesting. It offered me a lot of variety, a lot of ways to think about both mark making and color, and so I did several of them. This is just a little example of one of the small ones I did, but also my crazy mark making tally. Many of the artists have said it's very hard to do, and the reason for this keeping track of the marks is to literally think about making a connection to an individual that has died from this virus. And through that kind of connection, it's more than just making a painting. And I've asked everyone to try to keep track of their marks, and we are counting them. Literally, we're up to about 240,000 marks at this moment. This is the first piece that was made. The artist is Annie Silverman. I don't know Annie personally, which was one of the thrilling things when people started making work and I didn't know anything about them. It was started on Instagram as an offer to artists and anyone to do this project. And Annie joined right away. It's a woodblock print and small, I think 10 by 10 inches. Keep going. Many of you probably know about Rebecca Doughty if you're in the Boston area. She's a terrific artist that has a sort of dark sense of humor. So this wonderful piece of hers, I had to put in a detail because the piece is full of these little smiles, weird little smiles with teeth. And Rebecca sent that in early also in the project. These are two works just to compare. There are similarities in some of the artists' works, and there's great variety as well. So this kind of pattern making, mark making, you can see on the left, this is Jane Goldman, also a Cambridge-based artist, watercolor. And on the right is Madelyn Steinhauer Collins. I do not know Madelyn. It's a 4-inch by 12-inch piece collage with painting in addition. I like just seeing these two together. Next. Roz Sommer is a great friend, I think, of the Cambridge Art Association. Again, I've not met Roz personally, but I've met a lot of her paintings for this project. Roz got very enthusiastically involved, and she probably made about 6 or more. It seemed like she had a tremendous amount of fun exploring all kinds of ways of making marks, and the paintings are full of life, very lively. I think they're quite small too on Yupo. And just to show you some of the variety too, not all work is on paper or two-dimensional. Abbie Reed is from Maine, and her work in this piece, it's very hard to photograph, she said, is an accordion book. The pages are 4 by 3 inches, and the book itself has 40 pages. And I don't know if this is a typical kind of work for Abbie, since I don't know her personally, but she has continued to make more books as far as I know, because she posts them on Instagram. Yvette Dubinsky is an artist I do know, and Yvette lives in St. Louis and also in Truro, Mass in the summer. And this work is very complex in terms of its approach. It has cyanotype, ink, lots of mark making, and also some collage. And I don't know if it's possible to get close to it or not. I couldn't on my screen, so maybe it's not, but she has cut and pasted a lot of text, words from newspapers. And so they say things like pod and Fauci and healthcare workers. And so there's a lot of writing in the piece as well. Next, please. Ilana Manolson is an artist I know well, also lives here in Concord. Ilana's work is acrylic on Yupo, and this about 9 by 14, I think she said. And this is kind of also a theme in some of the work. This kind of celestial imagery, a circular motion, circles pop up a lot, and this almost kind of starry night and or water equality. This artist is very interesting. Again, I don't know him. We only met on Instagram, and these are 2 out of many, many of the images he sent to me. It's a he sent me all the images from beginning to end. This is more or less an installation that's outdoors in the snow. And he used seeds from a nearby tree. I believe he even took all the seeds out of these pods, and then he created piles of 100 seeds and until he got to 1,000, and then he started making the piece. So it's a very, meditative, beautiful piece, I think, and talks about time, and it talks about nature in this way that it doesn't, it doesn't last. And he said that he would be leaving this work outside for the birds to come and eat. So it's very poignant in that way. Another night sky celestial like image by Tamara Krendel, a watercolor. And I know it took her quite a bit of time to make this piece. She spent days and days on it. Lots of very small marks that you probably can't even see in the piece. But again, a very almost transcendental night sky. I can't, I want to talk more about just all of the work and how impressed I was with the quality, the attention that the artist gave to the work, the thoughtfulness that went into every piece, the kind of feeling and depth of feeling in many of the pieces. This is an artist also I do not know personally, but I do know her work, Sarah Lutz, and she lives in upstate New York and on the Cape. And Sarah's known for these cellular-like forms that fly around the canvas. And she only made this piece a few days ago. She just learned about it and she just got right on it. So very appreciative. Next. Another big variety, an example of some variety in the work is this piece by Stacey Piwinski. And Stacey is a fiber artist, and she created this piece with 1,021 pom-poms. It's a material that she uses in other works of hers. And, I was just thoroughly excited when this Stacey sent this piece in. Sarah Haskell, another artist I don't know. This is the great thing about this project. I have met so many artists. I feel like I have so many more friends in a bigger community. And Sarah Haskell is also based in Maine. She is also a fiber artist. She makes beautiful weavings. And this piece she made for the project. Every work that you see, most every work was made especially for the project. So they're original pieces made with the project in mind. And so various fabrics, as you can see, and 1,000 stitches. Heidi Whitman, a good friend and a terrific, well-known Boston artist. And Heidi makes beautiful drawings with ink and gouache. And today it was just occurring to me after looking at the work again that I don't know if she intended this or not, but it has a sensibility of sort of a monitor that's sitting next to a bed in a hospital and keeping track of somebody's oxygen. I just made that up, Heidi. Maybe it doesn't mean that. Thank you. Next. Phyllis Ewen, another wonderful Boston artist. And Phyllis started pretty early on the project. And she started with a drawing on graph paper with Sharpie, sunflower-like images. And then she's just kept going. She's made them dense, this piece denser. It's the same piece, and denser and denser as the number of lives lost get larger. And now she's starting to go off the page into a whole nother work itself. And Rebecca McGee Tuck, another artist that I'm just getting to know. And Rebecca sent this in a few days ago, and I love the craziness of it. It is just 1,000 nails and screws on an oak board. And Rebecca shared that it took her, she really gave a whole day to this work. She spent 5 hours making the work, very intentionally focusing on the lives at hand. And Kate Hanlon is the last artist besides our panelists that I'm showing. And Kate made a quite haunting figurative piece with ink and also with charcoal. And in addition, Kate very graciously and very generously was teaching a class recently at Concord Art on experimental drawing. And so she suggested this project as a way for her students to work. And I think all of the students, I'm not sure, sent in work, really fabulous explorations of mark making, everyone different. And we've had 1 or 2 other teachers working with students too. So very, very grateful for that, Kate.
Okay, so before we get to the panel discussion, actually, Candace, if you can just spotlight me. Great. I just wanted to talk with you, and Kate, James, you're welcome to jump in as well. I just wanted to talk with you a little bit about your goals for this project. We know that you started this sort of at the end of 2020, and it has grown in exponential ways. I know that I learned of it through Instagram, through artists that I knew who were participating. A number of artists in the Cambridge Art Association community have participated. There's a lot of crossover between Concord and Cambridge. And so before we talk to the panelists, I hope you can share with the audience about where you hope to take this project.
Well, you know, probably the thing I didn't say initially was that, you know, this came to me as a kind of idea. I actually tried not to do it. I kept thinking, this is crazy. It's so much to take on, but I ended up, I just felt like I had to. In the long term, I've been taking it slowly, bit by bit, see how many people are participating and what the work's like. But in the long goal really is to show the work all together. And I think it would be so incredible to see as one big piece of work as a memorial for the COVID lives that have been lost. We haven't had a national memorial yet. As far as I understand, there have been lots of small individual memorials people have created, but you know, that's how I see it. It's wildly big and terrifying on many levels that I even think about this, but I think it could be done, and I think it could just be amazing. If we could do a live exhibit, that would be fantastic. Possibly I could do a online exhibit first, and if it's live, then I would certainly want to offer the work also for sale and give the proceeds to some we'll have to think of an organization. I'd like the artists to help decide that, and think of an organization or several maybe that we could donate some of the money to.
And how many pieces have been created so far?
So it's so wild. It changes every day. And right now, I think there are about 155, 160. You know, several people have done more than one. many of the artists I showed here have done several. And so it's just incredibly generous of them and incredibly exciting. And so I suppose the process is kind of addictive a little bit.
Liz, this is Kate James.
Yeah.
I was wondering, have you thought about an endpoint? Is there a time when you feel like you'll stop collecting work and think about exhibition of the work?
Yeah, it's a good question. The end point, again, ideally, it's a very idealistic kind of project I'm doing, but ideally it would be when these are lives in the US that we're counting, and when those really stop, or certainly come to an end. And I know that's probably not going to happen for quite a while, you know, depending, but that would be the ideal. But, you know, the numbers as they go down, and if they go down considerably, then I think that's when.
We are seeing a lot of questions in the chat about how to get involved, which I know that we have a call for action at the end of this, but do you want to talk a little bit about it now? Liz? Are you still there, Kate?
I'm here, but I think Liz is, I know
I think she froze.
I think Liz has frozen.
Yeah, I think she did. Let's see.
So
She will come back.
So from Erin Becker here at the Cambridge Art Association, you can visit the @MarkingLives COVID-19 Instagram handle to learn more about getting involved. But basically, you make art in the medium that you're comfortable with, and you can post it on Facebook or Instagram with the Marking Lives COVID-19 hashtag. There's no, as you have seen from the presentation thus far, there are folks who work in all different kinds of media who have put work into the project. And I think the goal is approximately 1,000 marks per piece.
That's right. Yep.
So you do have to keep count of those. Liz did show her methodology behind tracking marks by just, you know, making hash marks on a piece of paper while you're making the artwork. But whatever media, I really loved the piece that was seeds spiraling in the snow that was so ephemeral, really beautiful.
I just want to chime in that Liz also is encouraging people who are not officially professional artists to participate and to make, you know, it something that community, students, schools, all walks of life, you know, whoever, you know, it's a process of how making can be also healing and coming together, you know, in community and maybe sharing, doing it together, almost like a quilting circle or something like that. So, you know, if you are a teacher or in an environment where it's that would be something, a project that you could take on with a community group. I know she's encouraging that. Thanks.
Yes. She and I were talking about how societies become numb during things like pandemics or war, and people need an outlet, an art therapy outlet, in order to connect with how they're feeling and also connect with others who are feeling the same way, and how this project, you know, beautifully plays into that. I think that she has actually reached out to some art therapy groups and trying to bring as many people into the project as possible. The main reason that this program is happening is so that all of you will share the beauty of this with other people. So, and we're looking for that, you know, that spreading effect that it will have.
Would you say that it's viral, Kate?
I think it is. I didn't want to say that because I hate puns, but thank you, Erin.
I
you all-
enjoy puns.
Can you
So
all see me or hear me now?
Liz
Yeah,
is
Liz is
yep,
back.
frozen.
Okay. We'll stop wasting your time. Liz is back.
Yeah, no, I could hear you because I could see it
Okay.
on my husband's computer, but I disappeared. Anyway, thank you. You all know exactly, listen to them. They know what's going on. For those of you who are not on social media, well, you could get on social media just to do this, or you could also contact me. I don't know if I'm going to give my email out or not. I don't know if you do that on these things, but you could email me. It's just easier, certainly, on these other formats. If anybody else has suggestions, chime in. But some people who are not on those social media sites will email me images, and I will,
Yeah.
upload them.
So Liz, if a school were interested in doing this, and so there's 20 kids in a classroom, would the
Right.
teacher, you'd maybe have to figure out how that many
Right.
at a time would be added. Yeah.
Right. I have created a little demo video for that purpose, or I could conceivably do a little demo with a class
Mhm.
if the teacher wanted, or speak to the teacher and talk about it.
Right.
Great. So let's move into our discussion with a few of the participating artists. The first artist, I believe, that Liz is going to be speaking with is Warren Anderson, which we just need to go back a couple of slides. And if we can spotlight Warren and take Kate and I away.
So I'm going to, I had Warren follow the Kate Hanlon piece because he was in that class. And other than that, I know very little about Warren. And but he was such an enthusiastic contributor. He just kept making them and adding to them and trying new things. And I was really thrilled with seeing the work that he was experimenting with. So can you tell us, Warren, how the project was interesting for you, and how you got to some of these images?
Yes, thanks for having me, Liz. Well, I saw your posts begin just before Kate's class started, and I immediately started trying out ideas. My first drawings I made with a brush and ink, and then with a Q-tip using acrylic paint, because I thought, that's really a way to sort of a nice tool to use to engage in this repetitive drawing. I do find that it's quite consoling to make drawings like this. I've been just as engaged as everybody else in following what's happened. And in my home state of Maryland, there have been over 8,000 deaths. My wife and I have since we're older, we know a number of people who have been sick, some very, very sick. So I found it to be a really consoling experience. And these are from the second stage of my process. And the drawing on the left, after I made some images with a Q-tip, I decided to make some foam stamps. So the one on the left is I made from a wine cork that I carved a Greek cross into. And I applied I mixed up what I thought was going to be a black, but is actually a dark purple, and applied it with a brayer to the printmaking paper. And then I just started making marks by dipping them in acrylic paint that I thinned with an extender because I wanted the paint to be translucent. And I would let a layer of marks dry, then I would go over them, change the value of the paint and go over them again. And I wanted to get that, the additional detail and mark that's made by two overlaid marks. Then the image on the right is actually 4 sheets that I made with a foam stamp of an ankh, which is the Egyptian hieroglyph for life. I had to make a bunch of different stamps to get the scale right for the size of the sheet. And then I decided to cut the sheets up and reassemble them so I would get figure ground relationships that I was happy with and that seemed compelling to me. And I was mindful of using black paper and the dichotomy, using that dichotomy of black and white to explore the ambiguity of this situation, the pandemic. So I've continued to make other images. I've made some with Procreate, the digital drawing program, where I imported a study sheet of the onks and layered it and manipulated it and I've created some digital images as well. So it's been a wonderful project, and to have a concept that is just really completely absorbing has been really a gift.
Thank you so much. And again, I think Warren's just explored lots of possibilities, and I love this example that you could do it with just a stamp of some kind. You could do it with your fingerprint if you wanted.
Yeah, I explored that too. I used my fingers and.
Yeah, and that's why anybody can do this project.
Yes.
We've had amazing artists do it, but
Right.
But anybody could do it, and it's not an intimidating thing, which is
No.
something that I intended when I created it. So thank you, Warren. We're so
You're
grateful
welcome.
for
My pleasure.
all the work.
Yes, that's me.
That's you, Deborah.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I want to concur with Warren. I found it extraordinarily consoling as well. And the narrowness of the concept, the specificity of the concept allowed my intention, which as an abstract artist is usually very nonverbal and usually private, to become public immediately and to the viewer. And the audience, despite it being abstract, all of a sudden it becomes imbued with this kind of heightened emotional sensibility. And so that the marks, the viewer knows that these marks are not just marks, but they have this a narrative behind them. And so it's no longer just this kind of non-objective abstraction that is typical when people tend to look at abstract artwork, and they kind of revel in the formalism or in the gesture or in the materiality. So everything just has, because they know what this is about, I feel like my private act was shared in the end. The private process becomes shared with the public. And not just a product. So this piece is one piece. It's made using black hot glue sticks. I come from a sculpture background, so the tactility and the gestures was mediated through a physical act of pushing this, black, stiff, hard material, and then it metamorphosizes, it gets gooey. And then it gets, hard again, but it doesn't get hard as in the beginning. It kind of just becomes, it becomes flexible, and it has these hairline, hairs of the hot glue that are kind of very fragile. So to me, even the materiality had an emotional charge with it. And it's two-sided because I just felt like, maybe it's my sculptural background, one side wasn't enough. So it's very spiky, it's dense. And then when you flip over the white paper, you can see kind of this vortex, which just tends to be my own vocabulary. But in this context, it's this, this movement that can't be contained, the virus. And unfortunately, leaving the white is a kind of stand-in for the unfortunate certainty that more lives will be lost, before this ends. And, I found the process very freeing. in some ways. And I felt because it was so narrow that the decision making that I usually experience when I make was very compressed. And I really at a certain point stopped, you know, I know you're supposed to count, but I stopped counting and I kind of got lost in this repetitive nature. And it's almost, I felt it was meditative. I felt after when I finished a kind of experience I have when I meditate. It's not it's just sort of a centering. And so, you know, it made me very much, it was a very different process of making for me in this act. That's all I have to say.
That's a lot to say, but it's a lot of wonderful explanation of your activity and your experience. And I just say thank you. You know, you again, you know, sort of got it from the get-go and just dove into it. And they're wonderful pieces, very alive and you know, also a bit haunting.
Yeah, I
So,
like that what you said, Liz, about alive, because I really feel like, you know, people are lost, but there's people, they were loved. Everybody
yeah,
was loved.
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
lost. And so there's this kind of frenetic energy that you know, I'm trying to put in that work that, you know, the black and the spikiness it's, you know, there's a mourning obviously of the black, but the energy of those that are lost, you know, if you believe in that, the energy doesn't disappear. You know, I'm, you know, not
Yeah.
trying to get too metaphysical about it, but there's a lot that I feel that came in there that sometimes doesn't come in when I just work abstractly in some ways, you know, that it's more open-ended.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debra. Thank you for your attention to it and for your support. She's been really supportive to me. Yeah, and we've known each other a long time. So I'm just really grateful that you jumped in.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Welcome, Gupi. I have not met Gupi except through her work, and so thrilled that she decided to create some work for this project. So maybe you just give you the floor to tell us a little bit about how you developed the work and what the experience was.
Okay, let me start by just sharing what I normally do with my work. I'm an artist who works with art and science. It's the intersection of art and science that I work with. And I work with memories and mapping. And I work with collaborate with a lot of researchers and scientists. I've been artist in residence at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. So most of the work that I do is focused on the research that's happening. I do a lot of reading of the research that scientists do. Sometimes I contribute and try to influence the project. And sometimes I do independent work that sort of makes a commentary and more the artistic leaning of things. I keep it independent for myself in my studio. So when Liz's call came and I read it, it was actually after a daily walk. I usually do my work in the studio, and in the afternoon I head out for a walk, like most artists do, take a break and then come back and then maybe continue with some more work and then go back with the rest of life. But then when I came back, I realized one thing that was happening steadily during my walk. One was, of course, the physical distancing, the mask wearing. But there was also a sort of like a paranoid effect that was happening. If I missed somebody whom I saw on a daily walk, I would start asking, what happened to that person? It's been 2 or 3 days since I saw them. I hope they are okay. And that's the human side of it, that worry and that fear that is coming. But on my work side, things are great because I have more time to work in my studio. I'm doing my gardening, I'm doing my walks. I have more research pouring into my studio, do my regular work. So it's sort of like this conundrum of these two splits that is happening within me. You know, on one side, the human side, where I'm getting the text daily, people checking in, hearing about losses of close family members, friends, or people suffering from the disease in different conditions and different levels, from asymptomatic to the severe, not knowing whether they're going to survive or not. And that was taking a regular toll on me. It was almost the pressure of the virus on a regular basis. So when your call came out to me, it was like thinking, oh, this is a wonderful opportunity, because it goes back to just basic drawing, releasing all the thoughts out of me and trying to see what I can explore for myself. So I said, I'm going to just take 2 pieces of paper. And these were actually pieces of paper that I had experimented with Sumi ink. It just had Sumi ink poured on them. These were disasters when they started off with. And I thought this was the perfect metaphor for where I was at when I started with. And so when I had that, then I tore it up into 2 parts. So you see 2 pieces of artwork. You're going to see the other one later. But in this artwork, I said, like, what am I going to do? And in my work, the color yellow is very meaningful to me. Whenever I get close to death and disease, especially of loved ones, somebody who's very dear to me, or something that is unbearable, I always go to the color yellow. And I mix it with grays, and this time it started speaking to me. And then I said, I'm going to restrict myself even further and just keep it to pen marks. I'm not going to do anything more than that. And so you see these pen marks. And my regular work, my regular project, you can see an artwork behind, is also dealing with the concept of mathematical meanders. And it's talking about marks moving in space and time, sort of within intracellular, at the genomic level, at the protein level. And it's talking about that and how does it move about. So I said, let me just relax all those. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just laying the mark. And so you can see those patterns still image, but my mind is drifting. And as I'm starting this, I'm remembering Basquiat, every line means something. And the more dots I keep, I lose track of the count. And what I see and what I'm left with is just this feeling that it's riffing off and translating into something else. My mind is coming up with every mark means something. Every line means something. Every life means something. Every moment in every life means something. And then that sort of blows me away. And so it is that I send that out to you first. It's a small 11 by 7 inch piece. It's Sumi ink, acrylic ink, and acrylic pens. And that's all it is. But when I look at them, and you can show either one of them, what I see for myself, I do not know what I'm seeing. Because as I'm making it, because I have no set ideas in mind as I work always, and all I'm thinking is, oh, is this a landscape that I see when I go out on my daily walk? Is it the hills and the trees and the shrubs? Or is it the research that I'm reading about the severity of the disease that causes respiratory problems and gastrointestinal problems? So am I seeing structures like NAMs, macrophages? Am I seeing structures that have to do with the villi that are affected by it in the gastrointestinal passages? So these are the things that are going on. Or is it just a memory of a mark that's moving in time? Or is it a mark of memories moving in space and time? I'm in this new space where I'm slowly beginning to calm down so much more. And it becomes clearer for me that panic and the split that is going away is sort of breaking away. Because all I always explore when I do my work is ask Paul against existential questions. Where do we come from? What are we? And where are we going? And when we are faced with a pandemic like this, it sort of hits me in the face. You know, like, what is happening over here? Are we seeing something deeper? Can we make a deeper connection over here? And we see the scientific research, which is coming up it's exploding as much as the number of cases are happening over here. And so that comes to me. And so when I finished this piece and then I moved on to the other piece, it was to
See the next piece, please.
Yeah.
There we go.
So you can see that this is not so calm, and that split that is happening on both my sides. That one side is a little more accepting of it, and the other side, which is a little more having I would say a problem with it, is how I would pleasantly put it. And these two things came up together. And what is it that I'm working with? Are these abstract shapes? Do these people mean things to me? Are these loved ones? This is an uncle whom I've lost. This is an aunt who's sick. Who is this to me? You know, and what does this mean to me? And then I realized that I can answer Paul's against question once more, because it's researching each time over and over again as we process and as we work on projects and live life, you know, answering these questions. And I can see then, for me personally, you know, because of the work that I do, that where I came from was shock and fear and panic and numbness and clamor, a lot of clamor for calm. And slowly I was moving on to the realization, the work itself started to speak to me, both this work and my own personal work. It started speaking to me in a different way. It started speaking to me like I could start seeing that we as multi-celled organisms, as a species we call Homo sapiens, are actually having this moment of vulnerability. And we have to face it, this idea of transience that we have. And we are coming up against a single-celled organism, which seems to be so much more effective than us. That we both are evolving. We both are mutating. We are both relating to each other, but in very strange ways. And this is the moment of realization when you're seeing evolution at work. And what a profound and deep moment. And so then it allows us to see, can we do it with caring and compassion? Can we then make sense of the parity that is there in information, access, treatment, all that's happening outside? And that's what it came to me. So then I can go back into my other work. So I can keep going back and forth. So you would know, as you know, there are a few weeks or a few a month's gap between the first artwork and the second artwork when I give it to you. Because that's the process that I went through and where I am at currently.
Thank you so much. There's so much in just what you said, and the complexity of all of that, and your work is extremely complex and deep. So thank you. I appreciate both of them, and we'll be connecting in the future.
Sorry, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Liz.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Well, thank you. You too.
Well,
yes.
I think a while ago, in the beginning of this project, I think you sent me a message.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I think you had parameters of 22 by 30. Did I make that up?
You are correct. And then I realized that was really crazy. So
I took you at your word.
I know you did. Thank you.
And I ordered paper, 22 by 30. I ordered some arches and some BFK Reeves. And the first piece, which is this piece that I did, well, first of all, I have to thank you for asking people to do this, because a lot of us had been working out of our homes. I call it art in isolation. And some of it was work that we'd already been working on. Some of it was a nod or trying to embrace what was going on in our world and the larger world. But you gave us direction and focus, which I really appreciated tremendously. And I, as you said, I took the 22 by 30 and I went forward with a paintbrush. I started out as a painter like many people, but I have not been a painter for a long time. I'm more of a printmaker, sculptor, mixed media person. But every now and then I've picked up a paintbrush and I found it incredibly freeing and expressionistic. And so I picked up a paintbrush and acrylics, quite watered down, and I just went to that piece of paper and I counted, I kept sort of a record on the side like you did, checking it off. Was very determined to follow that 1,000 marks, but I made 1,000 circles. Anyone who knows me knows I have a circle obsession. They're not pretty circles, they're very loose, circular-ish. And it was very meditative and prayerful, like everyone said. I decided to use color because I felt that lives were colorful and they left behind their color. I didn't want to be too mournful. I did add black, but I found I wanted to sort of approach it as a celebration of those lives. I've been fortunate, like many of us, not to have lost anyone. But I really loved that you invited us to really seriously consider that these numbers, these statistics were people with families and friends and full lives, and they were gone. So now I'll cry. So anyway, I found it very, very liberating, and I thank you for inviting me to do it. And I was really excited about it. So then I went on to my next piece.
Just the next slide.
Which is a little bit more of a nod to the way I normally work because I am a printmaker. I do a lot of mono printing, but I also do this thing called the Family Debris series, which its fundamental basis is waste not, want not, is to reuse as much of the stuff that I have or that my family has to not waste it. So as a printmaker, I have lots of sort of bits and pieces of prints. And I took them and I decided that I would use them as circles, again, representing lives. The sphere is sort of a centering, perfection, serenity. I think it's universally appealing. So I decided to take all of these prints and make 1,000 monoprint circles. And this time I didn't have to do a little mark thing. I had a bowl. I just piled them up in the bowl, and I knew that I had 1,000. And then the next step was to apply them, glue them as a collage to BFK reef paper. And in a lot of ways, this is a celebration, but it also, again, it's colorful, but it represents, souls going out into the world, out into the universe, out into the ether. I feel like it's sort of an explosion of lives moving outward. And, as an artist, you sort of think of composition and all of those things, but I so appreciated having a deeper meaning here than a lot of the work that I do, because I was thinking about people. I was thinking about, this is 1,000. I did these in early January. So the numbers were much smaller, but it had a huge impact on me that this little number of circles in the bowl was just a minute fraction of the people that were dying. So, and I've started a third one, but this one stitches. I do a lot of stitching, and working at home, I have enjoyed being able to hold things, have them be sort of domestic handwork. And so I do stitches and count them as I go along. But I just want to recommend that anyone who's listening to this, take this on in whatever form you would like, because this has been a life-changing experience for all of us, more for people who have lost people they love than some of us. But I think it does force you, or not force, but encourage you to really think about it. I think Liz used early on, you might find it enjoyable. And I was talking to a friend, encouraging her to participate. I felt guilty using the word enjoy, but there is a certain constructive, emotional, evocative feeling that you have while you're making this piece. It doesn't have to be great art, but it does bring emotion to the forefront. So that's all I have to say. I encourage everyone to participate, and I'm going to keep going. And, until the lives stop being lost, I think everyone should. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, so grateful for that's a very intense piece, this one, and time-wise and everything, the work you put into it. So
one other thing I want to say about what Liz did with that piece, she animated it. Now, I've never animated any of my work, but that opened a new creative door to me. I was thinking, I have to do that. So thank you, Liz.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I didn't do the animation. I hired a wonderful mass art student to do that for me named Nicolann. So she's a creative genius behind the animated pieces.
Very cool.
So do we have questions?
We do have some questions that have been coming up in the chat. I will read some of the more housekeeping questions, and then I will invite some folks to unmute themselves and ask themselves. So, but first from CJ Laurie, we have a question about the work, and they asked, does the artwork for this project have to be on paper? Could it be unstretched canvas?
It can be anything really, as you know, that's why I wanted to show the variety. And for some people, it's been more sculptural or fiber art based. And so there's really no limitation. The only limitation is, I think I may have put in at some point that it was on paper, but people have gone way beyond that. So the only limitation is you make some marks, and you can do it on any surface that you want to.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. I have a couple questions from Barbara O'Brien. Barbara, I'm wondering if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question about art criticism and your question about Debra's sculpture. I'll give her a few moments to get the mute going. And if not, that's okay too. Just drop me a line in the chat.
I messaged her a response. I gave her the size. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Barbara, if you can unmute and you want to jump into the conversation, please do. But Barbara's other question was, has there been any art criticism about the project thus far?
No art criticism. You know, again, it's all been online. So if you're somebody that does that, you've seen it. I would love it to be written about. I mean, this evening is at least, you know, is a nice example of maybe of getting the word out. I would like it to be written about. You know, certainly come on in, Barbara. You're a wonderful curator.
Well, congratulations to everyone involved. I'm wondering if either of the organizations that are hosting this evening might consider being the umbrella sponsors for traveling this, because it's a lot of organization, and maybe there are other people involved with other organizations watching this evening. It would be interesting to have a whiteboard or somewhere where we could exchange ideas about opportunities for this. I'm living in Milwaukee now, the upper Midwest, for those of you in Boston. Some of you know, some of you don't. So just curious about opportunities. It's a really worthy project, and the distinction, especially between the professional and non-professional artists, intrigues me, rather like what happened with the AIDS quilt in many ways. There's a great history that we could write about and think about for this sort of project. So just overall, congratulations, super impressive. And I hope that there's some momentum that builds from this evening.
Well, we'll be talking, Barbara. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'll jump in terms of institutional support. I know that Liz and I have talked about ideas around hosting virtual days of making that we would try to spread around to other organizations, at least in the greater Boston area. It takes a little bit more coordination and a little bit more time to put together, but I would say we'll see kind of where this goes and what kind of support we can provide.
And I'd like to just add that Liz and I have talked about exhibitions, and depending on the size of it, it's hard to know just how big it might be. Or we've talked about how it would be great to have it at many venues at once because of the nature of the project, how that would sort of reflect what it's really about. So yeah. I just wanted to ask, I added a question. Have you thought about asking people to volunteer to help you with this besides organizations?
Yes, everybody can volunteer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people here tonight who probably would be very interested in helping in some way.
Yes.
And sometimes getting a large group of people to help also helps spread the project. So
Yes,
that might be
exactly.
yeah.
So,
I
should
know Barbara O'Brien.
how
She's
do
definitely.
I share my email? Should I just give it out to everybody, or what's
Well, why don't we have all the
process?
people who were here tonight? We can talk about it later. Maybe we can send them all a way to contact that would be comfortable for you and for everybody. Okay.
Okay, because yes, it's an enormous endeavor, and that's why I almost didn't do it, because I tend to be kind of ambitious about these things, about my paintings, everything. But I yes, I could use help in many different ways right now, because a number of artists and people joining, and the possibilities of getting it out to all kinds of communities, which it is what I'd also really like. Different communities, different parts of the United States that were particularly hit hard. Communities of color and that were particularly hit hard. So, nursing homes, senior homes, I mean, all kinds of things I think are possibilities. But of course, one person can't do that. But if I can create a team of people, I would love that, and love to work with a group. So raise your hand. I'm up for it. Thank you, Kate.
Good. Good.
Liz, I would guess you probably haven't had time to look in the chat tonight.
No.
So I just want to shout out that we have so many people from all over the place. We have people from Reston, Virginia, Somerville and Cambridge, Portland, Maine, Brookline, Keene, New Hampshire, Swampscott, Newburyport, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Belmont, and we have someone who just chimed in who says that they're tuning in from Ecuador. So
wow,
there's lots of folks from all over the place tuned in for this project tonight. Yeah,
that's so cool. Which is again the beauty of social media. I was never a fan. I'll say that much. I kind of didn't like it at all, but it is beautiful that way. It just anybody out there. My Reston, Virginia friend, is a friend from high school. I would love to know did she have a question? I would like to know what that might be, if she had one, or I don't know if she did.
No question. I think that we're through the questions so far, but keeping an eye on the chat if more come through.
Okay. Yes. Any other questions for me? I'm just so thrilled again. I want to also speak to just the generosity of the artists in this. I mean, it's mind blowing to me, how generous people have been, trusting me, it's following, my directions, and coming up with their own interpretation, which is extraordinary. So that has given me so much. Now I'll start to cry, but that has given me so much hope, and so much, our world was really broken. Our country was really broken, and it felt like nothing was hopeful. And so I just feel so hopeful in the ability of people to join something like this and take it on and talk about it. And it's extraordinary. So it's really done a wonderful thing for me.
I just got another question from Barbara O'Brien, and she asked, how are you archiving the submissions?
Oh, I finally did have to hire someone to help me with the social media, because it was impossible. I was spending 5 hours a day and more, at working on just keeping track of things. And so I have called Airtable that we're using. It's an app that is, she's collecting all the images from these sites and putting it on there with all the information, including the number of marks, which is kind of crazy, but we're doing that. So it's been a job. For sure. I want to remind everybody, save your work, you know, don't get rid of it or cut it up for collages, as I think Warren said.
I promised you I wouldn't.
So. So again, if anybody, just a shout out, if you know journalists, if you know writers on art magazines and art blogs and various things, you know, let them know about it, you know. And what's so great for me on this, I don't promote my own work in this way exactly, but it feels so great to do it for a big group of people, and so I'm not shy, you know. I'll pretty much ask anybody or talk to anybody about it.
Liz, I have a question, and I'm curious how the generation of so much work and the response to this project, how that's changed or affected your own studio practice, and what kind of energy that has kind of brought into your studio space with you, if any.
I don't paint anymore. No, let's see. I've had a really difficult, interesting and wonderful year, but I moved literally about this time last year, moved houses. And so it's been a big transition time for me, and we've been building a studio and all kinds of things. So I have not had the focus in my own work very much as of late. And I certainly was affected by the political world. And so this has given me something else to work on. It feels like a really creative project. It feels like it's very exciting, and my world has expanded from meeting all these people. And so I'm certainly going to start painting. I just moved into my studio, a new studio, about 3 days ago, and I'm unpacking a lot of stuff, old work and stuff. So you know, it's generated a lot of energy for me, and as I said, hope and excitement. So it'll get into the work somehow.
And maybe I'll pose that question to the rest of the artists, and I'm curious if the resonance of this project has made its way into your studio and into just the way that you're kind of like approaching other pieces of work that aren't necessarily for the Marking Lives project.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. It's changed the scale of my work a lot. And I started making drawings in other media where there's the same sort of obsessive energy and a difficulty economizing, I think, because of, you know, the pandemic is really emblematic of so many larger problems that we have in our society and the world. And so I think it's impossible to resist or to fend off the influence of world events in your artwork, in my artwork, certainly.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Lisa.
No.
Saying the same thing. No, what I wanted to say, add to that, was that the work, the time period in which we are staying, it is also because of Lisa's project, I have started slowing down in my work a little bit more. So I'm not going as fast as I would. I'm taking more intricate projects. So my collages involve those screen prints and wood block prints, and I'm taking things that are older, putting them together in newer ways, interpreting them in newer ways. So sort of, it's not just about regenerating the work, but to get a newer and deeper understanding of the work that I'm doing.
Well, let me just,
So hopefully,
let me just turn the computer.
it's somebody's voice that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that it's changing the work, the way I work profoundly. That's what I would add to that.
Yeah.
Lisa, sorry about that.
Oh, no. The pandemic has changed my work in that I didn't go to the studio for a very long time. So any work I did was at home, and that changed the scale of my work. My work tends to be larger, but I worked with materials and prints that I had at home, and I liked being able to hold them in my hand. They sort of became domestic and like homework. There was a lot of stitching and collage, more contemplative, more meditative. I included symbols for COVID because I didn't want to forget when and how I made the pieces. I mean, 5 or 10 years from now, I don't think anyone will look at that and say, oh, that's a COVID symbol. But I wanted to remember it. And a lot of it just changed what I was working on at the time. I wasn't going into the studio. And so, and then when Liz offered her project, I incorporated or brought in paper, but again, I had materials at home, and that's what I worked with, were at home materials and very focused. I don't think I'll forget this time, will you? And I think our artwork will reflect it for, I think, a long time. I always knew conceptually that a pandemic was possible, but to live through it is a whole nother story. And I think all of our work will reflect it, I think. I don't see how it can't.
I mean, I wanted to chime in because I don't think my work has changed, but I feel like I've been more kind of passionate about, since we've been deprived of the sense of our senses and our touch and the materiality of being and embodiment, it's really brought to me a kind of passion of how important it is. And that arts are so marginalized in this culture. And after the pandemic, they might even be more marginalized because the economic, what's going to happen to so many arts groups and smaller companies and et cetera. It's made me more passionate and more an advocate of how essential it is to our humanity. And we can't move forward in the 21st century, 22nd, without this vital sense of the core of humanity is making and being creative. So I'm interested in how this project can be democratized in some ways, and I'm really excited that Liz is talking about expanding it out the confines of the art bubble per se, so that we revitalize the necessity and remind people everybody's going nuts because, we need people, we need humanity, we need touching, we need a heightening of our senses. So that's all.
But I also would say that I felt like art saved me from total insanity.
Oh, absolutely.
From making art. And so speaking to the democratization of art, that's what we can offer up to all the other people who were stuck at home or felt isolated or didn't have that touch or that emotional embrace. It doesn't have to be museum art. Make art, just make something, put it out there, within the confines of your home. But I felt like without it, I'm not sure I would, I don't know how I would be, to be honest. My family couldn't stand me, I know that.
Yeah.
So.
I'm conscious of time. I know we're getting close to our end time, but I just had one other thought that, someone earlier mentioned the AIDS quote, and I think of the Visual AIDS Project, and I think of this project, and I think of this moment that was happening in the pandemic, kind of like halfway through, where I feel like there were a lot of conversations that were like, why aren't we seeing anything? Why are there no visuals to tell us what's going on. You know, we keep hearing these numbers and it's climbing, but we don't have that like visual. And so I wonder if some of you could put language to what I think we all inherently understand as the importance of visualizing and really seeing as a way of understanding, which I think this project so clearly tackles as one of its goals.
May I address your concern about the invisibility factor?
Sure.
This is Barbara O'Brien. Is that okay?
Sure.
I think that the trifecta of issues, the social justice issues, the ecological issues, the political arena, covering it all, smothering it all, and the pandemic, each took different public or private visual forms. And I think looking at this project in that context, whereas social justice concerns took a much more public aesthetic dimension, I think it's interesting to think about how the impact of trauma presents itself differently within the artistic community. And I've heard from friends in development, because I'm not a practicing artist and work more outward facing, that there are funds right now that people are wanting to give to social justice issues. And I think the healing from a pandemic is a great issue of social justice. How do we heal our people? So I think the notion of private or public might be a false paradigm, but it's an interesting one. And I'm glad that you brought it up, Marissa.
Yeah.
I made a series of digital collages using images from, media, current events, and drawing, and also historical images. And I found in the process, and I made them at the time that things were happening over the past year, and I found that it made me more upset making them than it was a difficult experience. It was not consoling in any way. It was just, it focused my anger, frustration, and bewilderment in a way that this has been just totally different.
Thank you. When I, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When I started, I really did think, oh, this could be, this is a perfect project that could be a real memorial, and like the AIDS quilt. It sounds crazy to say that, but I really do think it can, and visually to see all of it together and to say these are 5,000, 100,000 marks or whatever would be very impressive. So we can do that. We can do that. I really don't think it's impossible, because why not?
And also, Liz, I wanted you to know that I haven't made any art for this. I'm just seeing everything for the first time, and how moving it was, how genuinely tearful and moved I was by each piece. And that lets me know that the world needs this.
Yeah.
Each one of us, all the audiences need to see it. They don't need, it would be wonderful if people could make things for it, but seeing it is really important. And hearing artists talk about it is really important, because I think the world depends on artists. I don't want to sound like a, crazy, but I really believe, and that's why I'm in the position I am, that the world needs this type of art in order to process the trauma that it's experienced. And so my fingers are crossed that we'll get to that stage, but it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that you're doing. And I want to thank all the artists tonight. Really moving, really amazing.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Liz for having vision.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and leading us together.
Yes, exactly.
And going through the whole process of it together. we enjoy working with you, Liz. Thank you.
And
Well,
sticking with it.
I
even
can't
though-
wait to actually
Absolutely.
see you all and actually work with you. You know, it's such a funny experience, but it's you know, I wake up every day with, you know, like looking at some more images and they just blow my mind. So it's been such a great experience for me, and we're gonna keep it going and make it. I just want the families and healthcare workers and people that have lost people. I want them to see it. You know, I want them to know that all these people were out there thinking about them and honoring them. That's my really goal, my really big vision.
It's a great act of humanity. It's lovely. Yeah.
I agree.
I feel like that's a great note to end on. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank Liz for agreeing to do this talk and for gathering together all of these wonderful panelists. We will save the chat because I realize that all of you haven't had a chance to keep track of it, and there's been some really wonderful comments. A lot of artists who have participated in the project have joined us tonight. And I hope that all of you who have attended, if you haven't made art for the project, I hope that you will make any kind of art. Use whatever media you want and share it with Liz, and that you'll tell your friends about it as well, so that this project can spread even further. We did share Liz's website in the chat, as well as all of the artists except for Warren, because we don't have a website yet. So we shared websites for the other artists, so you can follow them and learn more about their artwork as well. But again, just thank you for joining us. This was recorded. We will share the recording with all the folks who registered once it posts to our YouTube channel within a couple of days. We'll send the link directly to you. But until then, you know, chin up. We're all going to get through this. You know, I really do feel light is at the end of the tunnel. And I'm so grateful to Liz for creating this project that has helped people weather the past year. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Good night, all.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Liz.
Well,
Thank you.
Bye, Liz.